transactions number 3, and the title is What Goes Up? We'll see. We'll see. What goes up? Alright, so I was prompted by a message that I saw on social media a couple of weeks ago, which got me thinking. And it was this phrase: when did we turn worship into singing? And initially I was a bit like, where are you going with this, buddy? I wasn't sure which direction he was going to head. When did we turn worship into singing? Now, of course, I can understand that, like, alright, well, if you only think that you're worshipping when you're singing, then that's a pretty thin definition of what worship is. It's a pretty thin understanding. But if you say, well, the singing doesn't matter, well, that's wrong as well, isn't it? Because we need both. The Word of God testifies that both truths are very, very important. So I started really thinking about this, and I watched a bit of this guy's message, and he had some good things to say. He dived into the Word and unpacked it. There was times when sometimes the musical aspect of worship was a little bit downgraded. You know, it doesn't have to be really loud. It doesn't have to have, you know, a million musicians and all that. But if it does, that's not wrong either. You know, it's okay. You're not singing. Alright? So, but this week particularly, I want to talk about, well, what is worship without the singing, without the music? Let's look at that. And then next week, I want to explore what does the Bible say about musical worship, singing, and connecting with the Lord through song. Yes. Okay? Does that sound good?
Yes.
So today we're looking at what is worship if it doesn't include singing. So we're going to look at possibly what the first reference to worship is in the Bible. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 22. We're looking at Abraham and Isaac, and we're going to read 5 verses together in Genesis 22. And if something jumps out at you straight away when you're like, what? Well, we'll sort it out. Okay? So it's going to be up here. If you want to read your own translation, that's okay, but I'm ready to go. So let's go. Genesis 22, starting verse 1. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Verse 2, then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Verse 3, early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. Verse 4. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship. Everyone say worship.
Worship.
We will worship, and then we will come back to you. I'm going to say that again. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Alright, so there's a number of things here we want to unpack. The first thing is, it looks like God's telling Abraham to commit a human sacrifice. Alright, now this is pretty confronting. How do we deal with this? Because if we sing out a God of love, then how on earth can that be in concert with a God who is endorsing human sacrifice? And a few years ago, I was teaching CLS, Christian Life Studies, to a group of Year 5 and 6 students, and I was talking about Abraham and Isaac and this encounter, and it's like, well, how do you get 10-year-old kids to understand this? If you've been a Christian for a while, you understand that Abraham is a key person in the Bible, and this event is a metaphor of what happens with Jesus. So we sort of get used to it, but if you're reading this for the first time, you go like, well, what's going on here? So here's my take on it. In this time period, so Abraham was about 2,000 years BC, so about 4,000 years ago. In this time period, there was a lot of false religions. And in the false religions, the Canaanite religions, to worship their gods, they did do human sacrifices. Now, let me just be really clear. We're not endorsing human sacrifice here. Okay? It's definitely something that we don't want any part of today, alright? If the Lord tells you to commit a human sacrifice, that ain't the Lord, right? That's someone time to commit human sacrifice. But I believe this is what I think is the subtext and how I process it. In that time, false religions committed human sacrifice, and I believe here that the subtext could be, hey Abraham, if they're prepared to do that, to worship their false god, are you prepared to do it for me? Are you as committed as them? Now we've got to understand that Abraham and God have a huge history here, a long history. Abraham knows God. He's walked with God. God told him to go to a place, and I'll show you where that place will be, Abraham. So he left Mesopotamia and went on this huge journey, and it was very difficult. Promised him he was going to have a child. Took 25 years, lots of sin along the way. 25 years later, Isaac is born, and now 13 years after that, God's saying, I want you to sacrifice him. They have a long history. Abraham knows God. Abraham walks with God. And when God says this to Abraham, he knows he can trust him. And well, how does Abraham process this? And if Abraham knows God, and God's telling him to commit a human sacrifice, well, how does he process it? Well, look at the very last verse that I read 2 times. Abraham to his servants, he said, we, that's Isaac and Abraham, we will worship, and then we will come back to you. So Abraham had faith here that, God, I don't know how this is going to work out, but what I do know is I know who you are, and I know that you're going to look after this situation. Don't know the details, Lord, but I do know this is my faith statement. Abraham is speaking in faith here. We're going to go and worship means sacrifice. That's what it meant in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, they sacrificed. It cost them something. So we're going to go and sacrifice, and then we're going to come back to you guys, and that's how it's going to go. So that's the first thing I wanted to make clear. That it was a test for Abraham. He didn't know exactly that it was just going to be a test and that he wouldn't have to go through with it. But he knew God. Abraham made a confession of faith. I want you to know that this word here, worship, it's used a couple of times before this. Obviously, we're reading the English version, it's written in Hebrew. This word that's translated here, worship, it's only used a couple of times before this. But literally what it means is to bow. It means to bow down in homage, which is an expression of great respect and honour. To lay prostrate is another way it could be translated. To lie face down in submission, to render yourself helpless or defenceless. That's worship. That's what worship is. I'm going to bow down low before someone who is greater than I am. I'm going to express great respect and honour to somebody other than me. I'm going to go down, and they're going to be lifted up even higher. So that's what worship means in this instance. So I want to go back now to Genesis chapter 4. So we're going back a number of chapters, and this instance here could be a different encounter that is another time where worship is expressed. Are you okay? Still good? So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 4. We've looked at Abraham and Isaac. We're going to come back to the story of Abraham and Isaac to find out what happened. Okay? In case you didn't know. So Genesis chapter 4 now. So this is another time when something is going to be sacrificed and brought to somebody greater than the owner of the sacrifice. So Genesis chapter 4 and verse 2, and this is talking about Cain and Abel. Verse 2 says, when they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. Verse 3, when it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. And this made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. Verse 6, why are you so angry? The Lord asked Cain. Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out, the sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master. Wow, there is just so much, so many goodies in these verses here. It's packed with content. The first thing I want you to see is that for Cain and Abel, they both went to some effort. They both did something. They both, if you think about what did Cain do? Well, he cultivated the ground, so he was a farmer. He's grown crops, and if you're not sure what that means, well, you've got to dig into the ground, you've got to break it up, and then you've got to plant seeds and make sure it's getting enough water, and then when it's grown, then you come out and cut it. And so Cain's done all that, and then he's gone to the effort of selecting some of the crops that have grown, and he's prepared it, and he's brought it to the Lord. Okay? And so he went to some effort. But apparently, something went wrong somewhere. Because the Lord wasn't really impressed with what he brought. Now, I looked into this a language here to try and work out exactly what we know. Alright? And what we do know is that the words here that when the Lord looked at Abel's offering that he was pleased with, the words are that he gazed upon it. So he had some awe about it. Wow! Gee, you've gone to a lot of effort here. I sound like I'm a primary teacher. Gee, you've gone to a lot of effort here. That looks great. You really use lots of colours and you stay within the lines. Man, that's pretty. How long did that take? That really must have taken some while. Did you do that? Are you right-handed, left-handed? That's good. You haven't even smudged. He's really like looking at it. Okay? But when you see a student who's like really been looking out the window and sort of been drawing and all that sort of, you look at it and you just pass by. David, have your kids done that? You try and do an R over everything they do, but sometimes you're like, well, that, yeah. You just started it. Keep going. All right. So there's something about Cain and Abel's offering where Abel's offering was really worth parking on and looking at it. And it says in the best portions. He bought the best. Cain bought something, but the Lord, it didn't really dazzle the Lord, Okay. All right. The Lord didn't accept it. Now this might seem really harsh, okay? Because doesn't the Lord love everybody? Well, absolutely He does. But in trying to help you connect with this and what this means, I want to take you back to my proposal to this lovely lady here. Over 12 years ago, on Valentine's Day. It was how romantic. And I wished her a happy Valentine's Day by recording myself playing drums to her favourite song at the time. And I was playing drums and I had a music stand there, and every now and again I'd turn around a piece of paper on the music stand. We're watching the video together. Right? Kate's tearing up. Not really. And the first one was like, love you, babe. Happy Valentine's Day. Hope you had a nice day. There's something important coming. What do you think it is? I can't remember. It's a long time ago. Anyway, so it gets more and more pointed. And then the final one was, will you marry me? And she's like looking at me like, hey, is this for real? Are you serious? And then I had the ring next to the couch. Pulled it out, slipped down, just said, sure is. Will you marry me? Oh, and she was. She said yes. It was good. It was good. She's rolling her eyes now, uncontrollably. Anyway, I brought an offering to her, and it cost me a lot. Now imagine if I had said to her, everything we've obviously we had met before, it wasn't an arranged marriage, and we had met before, so there was already a relationship. And imagine if I'd sort of decided, yes, I'm gonna propose, and I'm confident that gonna be a positive result here, and imagine if I just went, well, yeah, I know that's right, you got to do a ring, haven't you? And I just sort of looked around that afternoon, and imagine if I found a plastic ring, or even like a hair tie, like a double it over, triple it over, that'll go around. Imagine if I gave her that. Do you think she would accept that? Probably not, right? Even though there was a relationship there, the offering had to be fitting of that relationship. It had to be suitable. Because what's worship again? It's an expression of great respect, of honour. So when we worship, we need to worship in a way that is expressing that. Expressing that we understand who God is. And understand that He's God and we're not. And we're going to come before Him bringing what we've got, something that cost us something. I mean, that ring, I'm always nervous when she leaves it on top of the piano or something, or the kids going to play with it. You know, I'm like, oh, Carol, look at that. You know, look after it. So, because I know how much it costs. She knows how much it costs too. Like she found out. But anyway, it's a pretty big investment, right? So, when we worship, it's got to be fitting of the occasion, fitting of the person. It needs to be an expression of great respect. Abel bought an offering that contained the best portions. So Abel bought the best that he's got. I'm going to bring the best that I've got. But you know what? That still doesn't really give us the clearest understanding of what happened here. We have to go to Hebrews 4, Hebrews verse 11, verse 14. You don't need to turn there. I haven't got it up here. But just quickly, I want you to know that in Hebrews 11, it talks about Abel's offering. And it says that by faith he brought an offering. By faith he brought a better offering than Cain did. And imagine if I had, this attitude of like, Kate wasn't really begging me to propose to her, but if I just went, well, this is a done deal, there is zero chance that I'm going to get rejected here, then there wouldn't be any risk, okay, that I'd be accepted. But when I propose, even like, think back, most people when they propose, they're pretty sure, right? But let's go back further to when you first asked your beloved out on a date, or when they first asked you. And remember there was that risk there. They're like, I'm not sure how this is going to go. This could be, how can I sort of weave it into the situation together, what's everyone doing after church? Where is everybody going? Are you going to be there with everybody? I might go and be with everybody as well. We'd all be there together, everybody. Trying to really back it down, or you just go, right, will you come out to lunch with me at La Pacuna? You're going to man up. But if there's not a bit of risk involved there, I don't know about the relationship, okay? There's got to be something there. So by faith, Abel brought a better offering than Cain. So why am I saying all this? Well, to help us understand what the nature of worship is. That's what this is all about. Because if we do just think it's only just singing songs, if we just think, well, it's just a bit of a warm up, whole day, let's sing a few songs, move around a bit, just singing it, a couple might smile or whatever, and then we get into the real church and we open the Bible. No. The singing is really important. But okay, other than that, what is the heart of singing? Okay? Well, it's an expression of great respect, of honour. It's something that costs you something, and it's something that requires faith. So, whether we're singing or not, that's what it should be. That's what it needs to be to actually meet the definition. So if we do go into next week, we're going to unpack more, but if we zoomed in right now to our singing time in our service, is that how we're doing it? Are we coming, forgetting about ourselves and going, right, well, I need to bow down in homage, I need to bring an expression of great honour. Submission is another key part of what worship is. Alright, so any questions about that? Okay, I might move on now. But I want you to understand there's risk involved. Okay, worship involves risk. If you're making a sacrifice in your worship, it costs you something. We'd be like, well, is it? Well, I don't know if it's worth it. Okay, what's the payback here? What am I going to get back in return? Well, if you're thinking along those lines, I'm not really sure if that is worship. Okay, so we're going to go back now and find out what happened with Abraham and Isaac. Got a little bit to read here, but that's good. It's good to read the Bible, isn't it? So we're back in Genesis 22, and we got as far as Abraham's faith statement that we're going to go and worship, right? And then we will come back to you. So Genesis 22 and verse 6. It says this, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac. And he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He's going to a lot of effort here, isn't he? Okay, we're getting down to it now. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Thank goodness for verse 11. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Verse 13, Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. Verse 14, so Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. Verse 15, the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you. Make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Now I want you to understand here that God is absolutely thrilled with Abraham's actions here. He's totally thrilled. And he goes to great extent to explain the blessing that's going to be bestowed upon Abraham because of this. Now you might think, well, that doesn't really, I wouldn't really want those, I wouldn't want those. But in that time, and for him, that was the biggest, prize you could ever get. That was the best. The best. Okay? And so, even though it might not be your thing, it was Abraham's thing, and he was going to be rewarded hugely. So the very last line says, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Obeyed me. So married to worship is obedience. Now this is really important because if we think about, worship is just singing, then it's possible to go to church and sing and think, well, yep, I'm good, I worship. But if you're living a life of disobedience, then you're not living a life of worship. Okay? The two have to go together. You can't just sing and then nothing else matters. Okay? The singing matters, absolutely. But the life of obedience absolutely matters as well. I just want to zoom in a little bit on that word there that is translated as obedience. The first meaning there, if you look it up in the original language, the first meaning of the word that's translated obedience is this. To hear. Isn't that cool? To hear. To discern. To give earnest heed to. To keep on listening. And I'm doing these things together. I've come up with my own translation of what this means to be obedient. You tuned in, you stayed tuned in, and then you put it into action. And that's what Abraham did, isn't it? He listened, he had an ear for God. They didn't just ignore him. Had an ear. And even when God was saying something that he didn't like, he kept listening. Alright. Wow. Well, he didn't change the channel. Stayed tuned in. And then when he received the message, he went, whoa. Now I've got a choice. Am I going to do it? am I not going to do? And he ticked all three boxes. So when we're thinking about, okay, worship, obedience, it starts with, am I listening? Am I receiving what God is saying to me? Because if we're at the first point, like, we start, like, oh, I just don't know, I haven't got time. No deal. No deal, Eddie. I haven't got time. I've got a whole sock drawer I've got to work on. It's been untidy for a long time, and I'm going to do my socks. And I'm going to mow them. Is there something else that's always more important, and you're not listening? I wonder if you're worshiping. Truly. I could go on to talk about specific instances in our first year here. We sort of you work with people and like, okay, I wonder where they're gonna pick it up, because I can't pick it up for you. And again, I would prefer to work as a teacher. If I'm teaching the subjects and they're in the classroom and I'm giving them the notes and explaining things and coming around to have a look and asking them if they need help and then their assignment gets 4 out of 50 or something, I can't do it for them. Okay? So it's the same with us. Like, God has provided for us and He is communicating to us. But we have some work to do to tune in. And then when we're receiving messages, if we don't immediately like them, we've got to make the decision to stay tuned in. Keep listening. Okay, well, I like that. That was good. That made me feel great. But when you started talking about this right here, ouch, I'm out. Okay? Where's your Christianity too hard basket? Because we can't really have one. Okay? We've got to be like, this time we're going to go through that too hard basket. And like, yeah, okay. And actually, it's for our own good anyway. The Lord's going, there's stuff in that basket there. Are you going to clean that washing, or it's starting to get mouldy? Can you go through it? Clean your washing, okay? Do something, but we can't have a too hard basket. We need to keep listening, and then listen and put it into action. Alright, so Abraham received a great blessing. He was going to be lifted up and have celebrity status. Everybody was going to know about him. And if you think about it, 4,000 years later, we don't want him talking about him. Okay, so he had a lot of likes on his Facebook page, and through the generations, millennia. Lots of people knew about Abraham. Big family, huge family. So, like everything that God promised, it happened. And it's because of his obedience, because he listened. So this is what worship really looks like. Now today, I want to make it really, really clear that sometimes when I'm preparing a message or when you're listening to a message, you want to know, well, how do I apply this? What's the application? Today's message, the application is just for you to be encouraged. We've done a lot of messages here where we've really challenged you. Alright? Biblically. That's the way it needs to be. However, today I want to encourage you. I want you to think back on your life and think when you have actually worshipped. And I'm not talking about singing, I'm talking about when you've really done something that cost you something. Okay, I'm not even talking about an offering, oh gosh, it cost me something. I'm talking about decisions that you make in life. And I want to let you know today that you have worshipped when you've done those things. And if you have worshipped when you've done those things, then like Abraham received the promise of God, you are going to receive the promise of God in your life. Amen. So I've got a list of things here. Now this is not an exhaustive list, but hopefully this will trigger some things in your mind to let you know and be encouraged when you've worshipped. If you've done any of these things because of Jesus, right, now you could have done some of these things just because of your own benefit or because of some other reason. But if you had intentionally made these decisions or these actions because of the Lord Jesus Christ, it has been worship. Let me go through this list. If you've not listened to gossip, because you go, Jesus, that I honour and respect you. I want to express my honour to you by not listening to that. And if you've had to walk away, you have worshipped. That's worship. If you have, for the Lord Jesus Christ, chosen to be patient with someone, that's worship. And that's hard. And that costs you something. It can be uncomfortable for a long time. It's worship. If you've withheld words, you're like, well, I'm just going to give them a piece of my, I'm loading up some words right now. And then the Lord's like, tapping you on the shoulder, and you're like, okay. If you've walked away from delivering that message, that's worship. If you've stayed in a marriage and it's been hard, that's worship. If you've gone to church when you didn't feel like it and kept a good attitude, that's worship. If you've lived somewhere that you didn't want to go, that's worship. If you've stayed somewhere you didn't want to be, that's worship. If you've been bold when you felt like being quiet, that's worship. If you've forgiven someone that you didn't want to for the sake of the Lord Jesus Christ, that is worship that is precious to God. If you've gone and asked somebody for forgiveness, knowing that they're probably going to make fun of you, knowing that it's going to be embarrassing, knowing that it's going to hurt, knowing that they probably won't say, I forgive you. If you've done it for the glory of Jesus Christ, that is worship. And that will be rewarded. If you've helped someone in the middle of their mess, that's worship. If you've stayed out of somebody's mess when you wanted to get in there and direct traffic, that's worship. If you've smiled when you wanted to complain, it's worship. If you've been grateful for what God's given you when it wasn't really what you wanted, that's worship. If you've repented of jealousy, that's worship. If you prayed the prayer of faith when you felt under the spirit of doubt, that is worship. And if you've told somebody else how good He is when you've felt the press, that is worship. Today, guys, I want to encourage you, because I know so many of you have made the decision to worship. Not singing, but real worship that has cost you something, that's been hard, that you've had to endure. But you know that that's what God wants you to do. That's worship. And I want to encourage you. I want to put courage in you. We overuse that word encouragement sometimes. But put courage in you, strength in you, that when you've done that, it's blessed the heart of God. He's loved it. And I'm not saying we're perfect, but I want you to be able to acknowledge in your life when you've gone, yes, Lord, I've done this for you. And even now you might be thinking, I don't even really see the fruit of that. I don't know what happened to that person, or where that's gone, or, you know, I did all that, and where's that, what's become of that? You know, that's okay. Because you didn't do it for you. Because if you did do it for you, it's not an expression of honour for somebody else. But if you did it for Jesus, and that's something that you can say, Lord, it cost me. I'll gladly pay that for you because of what you've done for me, and because of who you are. So be encouraged today, guys. That's all I want to say. I think that sums it all up in this one verse. I just love this. This one last verse of Proverbs. I'll put it up there. Proverbs 3:3. How do we live? Well, I think that we all know that Jesus said the law can be summed up by love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. I think we know that. How does that look? Well, I think it looks like this. Proverbs 3:3. Never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Well, who am I being loyal? Who am I being kind to? Everyone? To the Lord, being loyal to Yahweh. Oh Lord, I'm loyal to you, Lord. I'm not going to get swept away with something else. You listen, Lord. I'm loyal to you. I'll keep listening when I don't enjoy what I'm hearing. And I'll do my best to put into action because I'm loyal to you. And Lord, I'm going to be kind. Kind to others because I know how kind you've been to me. This is my exhortation to you today. To live like this. Remember loyalty and kindness. Amen?